Ladies and gentlemen, detachment is one of the most powerful inner shifts you can make when it comes to relationships, especially in the context of the phrase, when you stop chasing, they start looking for you. This shift is not about ignoring people or pretending not to care. It's about emotionally releasing the need for someone else's attention or validation. When you detach, you step into your own power, letting go of the desperation and anxiety that often comes with seeking someone's approval. Ironically, it's in that space of inner freedom and calm that others begin to take notice, because your energy changes from needy to self-assured. When you're chasing someone, whether it's a romantic interest, a friend, or even an opportunity, you're often operating from a place of lack. That lack tells the other person, on a subconscious level, that you don't feel complete without them. This can create imbalance, where your desire becomes overwhelming and the other person may feel smothered or less interested. Detachment corrects this imbalance. It communicates that you're whole on your own, that you're not waiting for anyone to complete you. This is incredibly attractive, not just energetically but emotionally and psychologically. One of the key aspects of detachment is rooted in self-respect. When you choose not to chase, you're affirming your own value. You begin to understand that your worth isn't determined by whether or not someone chooses you. Instead, you begin to choose yourself. You prioritize your peace, your time, and your energy. You stop placing your happiness in someone else's hands. This subtle yet powerful shift is often the catalyst for someone to start noticing your absence. People can sense when the energy of need is no longer there. And suddenly, your independence becomes intriguing. Detachment doesn't mean that you stop caring altogether. It means you care, but not at the expense of your well-being. You can love, appreciate, and even miss someone without allowing it to dictate your actions or sense of identity. This mature emotional state shows that you have a healthy relationship with yourself, which is essential before building a strong relationship with anyone else. When people feel that you are emotionally self-sufficient, they often want to get closer. Why? Because you don't need them. You choose them. And that makes all the difference. Another reason detachment is so effective because it gives space. When you're constantly reaching out, explaining yourself, or trying to prove your worth, you don't allow the other person room to reflect or even miss you. Space creates curiosity. Space creates longing. When you take a step back and focus on your own life, you give the other person the chance to realize your value on their own. That realization is far more powerful than anything you could say or do while chasing them. Practicing detachment also leads to clarity. You stop obsessing over what the other person is thinking or feeling, and you redirect that energy toward understanding your own desires and needs. You begin to see things as they truly are, not through the lens of fear or longing. From this place of clarity, you can make better decisions. You might even come to realize that the person you were chasing wasn't right for you in the first place, and that your energy is better spent elsewhere. In the end, detachment is not about playing games or manipulating someone into caring. It's about aligning with your own self-worth and letting your energy speak for itself. It's about creating space for the right connections to flourish naturally. And often, once you've let go, you'll find that the very people who once overlooked you begin to look for you. Not because you chased them, but because you stopped needing to. At the heart of the phrase, when you stop chasing, they start looking for you, lies a powerful truthful self-worth is magnetic. When you stop chasing someone, whether in romantic relationships, friendships, or professional connections, what you're really doing is reclaiming your sense of value. You're silently declaring, I know my worth and I no longer need external validation to prove it. That energetic shift, rooted deeply in self-worth, changes everything. It shifts the dynamic from desperation to dignity, from lack to abundance, and from insecurity to quiet power. Self-worth is the inner belief that you are enough exactly as you are. It's not about arrogance or superiority. It's about understanding that you are deserving of respect, love, attention, and kindness without having to beg or prove yourself to anyone. When you chase someone, you're often operating from the opposite belief, that their presence will validate your value. But when you stop chasing, you interrupt that cycle. You begin to say to yourself and the world, I don't need to earn love. I am love. When you let go of the need to pursue others, it doesn't mean you're giving up on relationships or connection. It means you're shifting your focus inward, where true confidence resides. Instead of wondering if you're good enough for someone else, you start asking more important questions. Is this connection aligned with who I am? Does it respect my time and energy? Do I feel safe, seen, and valued here? These questions can only be asked and answered once you've anchored yourself in self-worth. One of the reasons self-worth is so powerful is because it naturally draws people to you. When you stop chasing, you stop sending out energy that screams, "Please choose me," and start emitting the quiet confidence of someone who's already chosen themselves. That kind of self-assured energy is incredibly attractive. It piques curiosity. People begin to wonder why you're no longer available, why your attention is no longer theirs by default. Your absence becomes more powerful than your presence ever was during the chase. Moreover, when you embody self-worth, you teach people how to treat you without saying a word. You don't tolerate breadcrumbs. You don't settle for being an option. You don't explain your standards or beg to be understood. Instead, you walk away from what no longer serves you, and in doing so, you become a mirror. People either rise to meet your level, or they lose access to you. And here's where the magic happens: the moment you stop chasing, the moment no longer try to convince someone of your worth, you create space. Space for the right people to recognize your value on their own. Space for genuine connection to grow. Space for your own self-discovery to flourish. And often, it's in that very space that the ones you once chased begin to notice your absence and reflect on your worth. Because your energy has changed. But here's the deeper truthing: self-worth doesn't guarantee that everyone will come back or finally appreciate you. And that's okay. Because the real power is not in being chased, but in no longer needing to be. When you stand fully in your self-worth, you realize that the goal was never to make them look for you. It was to finally see yourself. In the end, when you stop chasing, they start looking for you because you've stopped sending the message that their attention defines your value. You've replaced desperation with self-respect, longing with contentment, and fear with trust. You've stepped into a version of yourself that doesn't settle. And that version doesn't chase. She attracts. In the context of the video topic, when you stop chasing, they start looking for you. One of the most powerful and invisible forces at play is the energetic shift. This isn't just a metaphor. It's a real, palpable transformation in how your internal energy expresses itself outwardly and how it affects the way others interact with you when you're in a state of chasing. Whether it's a romantic partner, a friend, or an opportunity, your energy is one of lack, neediness, and imbalance. You may not realize it, but you're radiating the belief that something is missing in your life, and you're trying to pull it from someone else. This energy communicates urgency, insecurity, and a desire for external validation, and ironically, it often pushes people away. Why? Because people naturally respond to energy. When you're chasing, you're energetically saying, "You have something I lack. I need you to feel whole." That can create discomfort or even pressure for the other person. But the moment you stop chasing, genuinely, not as a manipulation or temporary strategy, an energetic shift occurs. Your return to yourself, your energy begins to say, "I am whole on my own. I choose connection, but I do not depend on it for my worth." This shift from lack to fullness, from desperation to empowerment, is often when the dynamics begin to reverse. Suddenly, the people who once ignored you, took you for granted, or withheld their affection may begin to notice your absence, your self-containment, your peace. Why? Because your energy has changed, and energy doesn't lie. This energetic shift is rooted in self-alignment. You begin to value your time, your attention, and your emotional availability. You are no longer pouring your energy to convincing someone to stay, to see your worth, or to choose you. Instead, you are investing that same energy into your healing, your growth, and your self-respect. That transformation is magnetic. You're no longer seeking approval or love externally because you've started generating it internally. When you stop chasing, you also stop leaking energy. Think of every effort to win someone's love or attention as a small energy leak. Over time, these leaks drain your emotional, mental, and even physical vitality. The energetic shift that happens when you stop chasing is a shift from depletion to containment. You begin to conserve and redirect your life force. You show up differently, more grounded, more centered, more calm. And this, paradoxically, makes others more curious, more drawn in, more intrigued. Another key aspect of this energetic shift is detachment. You detach from outcomes and expectations. You're no longer trying to control how someone feels about you or whether they choose you. Detachment is not indifference. It's energetic sovereignty. It's the inner confidence that says, what is meant for me will stay. What is not can leave, and I will still be okay. This kind of energetic boundary not only protects you, it commands respect. Many people try to fake this energetic shift. They pretend to stop caring, hoping it will provoke a reaction. But the universe responds to authenticity, not performance. When the shift is real, when you truly let go from a place of peace rather than pride, everything around you starts to recalibrate. Ultimately, this energetic shift is about coming home to yourself. It's about transforming the energy of chasing into the energy of attracting. You no longer operate from the vibration of scarcity, but from the vibration of wholeness. That is why when you stop chasing, they start looking for you, because they can feel the difference, and so can you. So if you're wondering whether to keep reaching, trying, chasing, consider your energy. Ask yourself, what am I broadcasting? Because the moment you shift your energy from seeking to standing tall in your own light, you'll find that the people meant for you will feel that light and come closer. In the context of the video topic, when you stop chasing, they start looking for you. The idea of magnetism plays a central role. Magnetism in this sense isn't just about physical attractiveness. It's an energetic quality, a silent force that draws people toward you. It's the natural pull you create when you're centered in yourself, not seeking approval or validation, but radiating self-assurance, inner peace, and emotional independence. Magnetism is born when you stop chasing. Why? Because chasing implies that you're lacking something, and you're looking for someone else to fill the void. It comes from a place of need, urgency, and emotional dependence. This energy is repelling rather than attractive. The people can feel when you're trying too hard, when you're placing them on a pedestal, or when your happiness depends on their validation. That kind of energy often drives others away, or at best, creates unbalanced and unfulfilling dynamics. But when you step back, when you stop chasing, stop pleading for attention and stop overextending yourself, something powerful happens. You reclaim your energy. You stop giving away your power. That shift in behavior triggers an energetic recalibration. You become magnetic. Magnetism arises when you embody wholeness. You're no longer trying to prove anything to anyone. You're comfortable in your own skin. You accept yourself, flaws and all. You know that your worth isn't defined by how much someone loves you, how often they text you back, or how they perceive you. This level of self-possession is deeply attractive. People are instinctively drawn to those who are grounded and not easily swayed by external opinions. There's also a mystery to true magnetism. When you stop chasing, you're not broadcasting your need or desperation. You're quiet, you're composed. That silence, that emotional detachment, that lack of pursuit, it creates curiosity. People begin to wonder what you're doing, what you're thinking, why you're no longer reaching out. And in that wondering, they begin to look for you. This shift flips the dynamic. You go from being the seeker to being the one sought. Magnetism is also a reflection of emotional mastery, when you're no longer reacting impulsively to being ignored or rejected. When you're not falling apart at the first sign of distance, you're showing emotional strength. And emotional strength is magnetic. It signals to others that you're someone of value, someone who doesn't chase, but chooses. You don't beg to be chosen. You wait to see who's truly aligned with your energy. This kind of presence has weight. It's subtle but powerful. You could be in a room without saying a word, and your energy still speaks. People feel drawn to your calm, your confidence, and your quiet certainty. That's what happens when you stop seeking attention and start honoring your own presence. You become radiant in ways that can't be faked. True magnetism is also sustainable. Unlike manipulation or games, magnetism rooted in authenticity doesn't require effort to maintain. You're not acting, you're being. You're not adjusting yourself to be more likable. You're standing firmly in your truth. And that consistency builds trust and admiration. If people feel safe around you because you're not trying to control or convince, you simply exist in your fullness, and that is more than enough. In closing, a magnetism isn't about trying to be seen. It's about becoming someone who doesn't need to be seen to feel worthy. When you stop chasing, you send a powerful messaging. I am already whole. I do not need to pursue what does not pursue me. That message, that energy is magnetic. And that's why, when you stop chasing, they start looking for you. Because your light is no longer desperate, it's divine. Confidence is the core of the energetic shift that occurs when you stop chasing others and begin attracting them instead. In the context of the video topic, when you stop chasing, they start looking for you. Confidence becomes the silent yet powerful signal that transforms how people perceive and respond to you. It's not loud or boastful. It's rooted in self-trust, self-worth, and emotional independence. And it is exactly this kind of calm, a grounded confidence that draws others in. When you are chasing someone, whether it's love, attention, validation, or approval, you're often doing it from a place of insecurity or fear. You might believe that their affection or acknowledgement will complete you, validate your worth, or bring you happiness. But that very act of chasing communicates that you lack confidence in your own value. It says, I need you to see me, choose me, and love me in order to feel good about myself. This energetic desperation tends to repel others, making you seem emotionally needy or unstable. On the other hand, when you stop chasing and stand in your power, you are demonstrating true confidence. You are showing that your happiness isn't dependent on someone else's response. You're saying, I know my worth and I don't need to pursue what doesn't recognize it. This unspoken declaration is powerful. It shifts the energy. People feel it, and they respond to it. What was once ignored begins to be noticed. What was once taken for granted starts to be appreciated. Confidence makes you magnetic. It doesn't scream, it simply exists. It allows you to walk away when something isn't right, to remain silent when silence is stronger than words, and to set boundaries without guilt. When you do this, you reclaim your energy. You stop overgiving and start receiving. And it's in this receiving mode that others start noticing what they once overlooked. They begin to wonder why you're not chasing anymore, why your focus is no longer on them. That mystery becomes attractive. That shift sparks interest. A true confidence is about emotional self-sufficiency. It means you're okay with being alone rather than begging for someone's presence. You trust that the right people will gravitate toward you without force, and they do. Because confidence doesn't chase, it attracts. It doesn't prove. It simply is. Another key aspect of confidence is the ability to choose rather than beg. When you chase, you're hoping to be chosen. But when you're confident, you become the chooser. You don't fear loss because you know that nothing meant for you will pass you by. That certainty gives you an inner peace that's deeply alluring. People can sense when you're not desperate for them. Ironically, that's often when they start coming toward you. Confidence also radiates through your boundaries. A confident person doesn't tolerate emotional games, breadcrumbing, or half-hearted effort. They don't need to explain their standards. They live by them. This sends a message to others that you're not easily swayed, not emotionally available for just anyone, and certainly not willing to settle for less than you deserve. That self-assurance is often what triggers the realization in others that they may have underestimated your worth. In relationships, confidence creates balance. It prevents you from over-investing in someone who isn't giving back. It helps you detach from people who are inconsistent or emotionally unavailable. And as you pull your energy back, those who once felt entitled to your attention may begin to feel its absence. And that's when they start looking for you. In essence, a confidence is the key that unlocks your magnetic presence. When you stop chasing, you're no longer acting from lack. You're operating from wholeness. You don't need to be seen to feel seen. You don't need to be loved to feel lovable. You embody the truth of your worth. And that embodiment speaks louder than any words or actions ever could. And that's when the tables turn. Because confidence doesn't chase, it calls. It doesn't seek, it stands. And from that powerful place of presence, everything you once tried to chase starts finding its way to you. Reverse psychology is a fascinating psychological concept that plays a subtle yet powerful role in human relationships, especially when it comes to the dynamics of attraction, attention, and emotional pursuit. In the context of the video topic, when you stop chasing, they start looking for you. Reverse psychology helps explain why people often respond more strongly to disinterest than to pursuit, and why withholding attention can sometimes attract it more effectively than offering it freely. At its core, reverse psychology involves encouraging someone to do something by suggesting the opposite. It taps into a person's natural resistance to being controlled or directed. In relationships, it often plays out unintentionally. For example, when someone senses that you're no longer chasing after them, they may suddenly feel more drawn to you, not because they genuinely realized your worth, but because your lack of pursuit disrupts the expected pattern and triggers curiosity, even desire. When you stop chasing someone, especially if you previously gave them a lot of attention or energy, they begin to wonder why that validation has disappeared. That absence becomes louder than any words. Suddenly, the person who felt in control of the dynamic may start to feel uncertain. They might think, why did they stop calling? Why aren't they texting anymore? Did I lose them? This shift in dynamic flips the power balance. Instead of you being the one chasing and questioning, now they are. Reverse psychology works here because people often want what they can't have. When someone is readily available, it can be undervalued or taken for granted. But once you stop offering yourself so freely, you create a sense of scarcity. Human nature is wired to assign more value to what is scarce or unavailable. Your silence, your withdrawal, your focus on yourself, it all sends a signal that you are no longer dependent on their validation. And ironically, that's when they start seeking it from you. This doesn't mean playing games or being manipulative. The most effective form of reverse psychology in this context isn't about pretending to be disinterested. It's about genuinely reclaiming your focus, energy, and self-respect. You're not acting like you've moved on to make someone chase you. You're actually choosing yourself. And that shift in energy is what others feel. It's not about strategy, it's about self-worth. Interestingly, reverse psychology can also trigger ego responses. Many people have an unconscious need to feel desired or admired. When you stop giving them that, it can feel like a challenge to their self-image. They want to win back your attention, not out of love, but to reassert their control or status in your life. That's why it's important to be aware of the motives behind someone's renewed interest after you've stopped chasing them. Is it genuine, or is it driven by their ego? Another layer to this dynamic is that reverse psychology often reveals true intentions. If someone only comes toward you after you've pulled away, it says something about how they value your presence. If they never noticed your worth while you were giving your all, but now show interest once you're gone, it may be less about love and more about the thrill of the chase. In that way, reverse psychology can be a mirror. It exposes who is meant for you and who only wanted you when they couldn't have you. Ultimately, the power of reverse psychology in relationships lies in detachment. When you stop chasing, you're no longer trying to control outcomes. You're letting go, stepping back, and allowing people to show who they are without your effort holding the connection together. Some will fade away, and that's a blessing. Others will suddenly take notice, and that's a revelation. So, when you stop chasing, it's not about playing hard to get. It's about becoming hard to forget. And that's the real magic of reverse psychology. When your absence becomes more powerful than your presence, that's when they start looking for you. The boundaries are one of the most powerful tools we have in shaping healthy relationships, and they play a crucial role in the message behind the topic. When you stop chasing, they start looking for you. Establishing boundaries isn't about building walls, it's about honoring your self-worth, defining what's acceptable, and protecting your emotional energy. Ironically, the very act of setting boundaries often triggers others to take notice because it shifts the dynamic of power, value, and respect. When you're in a state of constantly chasing someone, seeking their approval, attention, or affection, it often signals a lack of boundaries. You're overextending yourself, giving without receiving, and allowing your emotional well-being to be dictated by someone else's presence or absence. This one-sided dynamic can be draining and unfulfilling, leaving you feeling ignored or taken for granted. People tend to value what requires effort and intention. When you remove boundaries and over-pursue, you reduce your perceived value. Not because you're not worthy, but because you've made yourself overly available. But when you stop chasing, something powerful happens. You begin to reclaim your space. You say, through your actions, my peace and self-worth are not up for negotiation. You are no longer bending yourself to fit into someone else's life. Instead, you're choosing to respect your own. This sudden change in energy is noticeable. People begin to sense that you're no longer emotionally dependent on them, that you've drawn a line, and this is when many begin to look for you. Boundaries are magnetic because they show strength. They communicate that you know who you are, what you deserve, and what you won't tolerate. This inner clarity becomes very attractive. Whether consciously or unconsciously, others pick up on this shift. They realize they can no longer treat you casually or manipulate your emotions because you've chosen to protect your peace. Another reason people start looking for you when you stop chasing is because boundaries disrupt unhealthy patterns. In many relationships, there's an imbalance of emotional labor. One person gives while the other takes and coasts. By stepping back and enforcing your boundaries, you disrupt that pattern. Suddenly, the person who is used to you always initiating, always giving, is left with silence. That silence often creates space for self-reflection. It forces them to evaluate what they truly want, and sometimes it awakens them to your true value. But setting boundaries is not about revenge or control. It's about self-respect. It's not about making someone chase you. It's about deciding you won't chase anyone who doesn't reciprocate your energy. That shift alone sends a strong message. I am not available to be undervalued. Whether they respond by chasing after you or not becomes secondary. What matters most is that you've chosen yourself. Boundaries also protect your time and energy for those who genuinely deserve it. When you stop pouring into people who are indifferent, you create room for connections that are mutual, healthy, and supportive. Sometimes the person you were chasing will rise to meet you, sometimes they won't. Either way, your boundaries serve as a filter, separating those who are aligned with your worth from those who are not. In the end, the boundaries are not about creating distance. They're about creating clarity. They are the invisible lines that teach people how to treat you. And when you stop chasing and start reinforcing those lines, others start to notice. Your absence speaks volumes. Your detachment shows dignity, and more often than not, the very people you were chasing begin to realize what they've lost, or what they've failed to appreciate. So yes, when you stop chasing, they often start looking, but not because of manipulation or games, because boundaries reveal the truth. They show that you respect yourself, and when you embody that kind of strength, the world around you responds accordingly. The phrase, when you stop chasing, they start looking for you, speaks volumes about attraction and self-worth. At the heart of this dynamic lies something profoundly powerful: inner focus. When you redirect your attention inward, toward your growth, peace, and purpose, you stop leaking energy toward people or situations that don't value you. This shift often stirs others to suddenly notice your absence, your strength, and your worth. Inner focus is the act of turning your emotional, mental, and spiritual energy toward yourself instead of constantly extending it outward in the hope of gaining approval, love, or validation. It's not about shutting the world out. It's about finally making yourself the center of your own world. When you are chasing someone, whether emotionally or energetically, you are prioritizing their opinion, presence, or affection above your own sense of fulfillment. That pursuit signals to others that their value outweighs yours. But the moment you stop chasing and redirect that energy back to yourself, everything begins to shift. People are drawn to those who are rooted, confident, and self-possessed. Inner focus cultivates exactly that. When you prioritize your healing, your goals, and your inner peace, you start radiating a kind of energy that is magnetic. You're no longer looking to be chosen. You've already chosen yourself. That self-affirmation becomes undeniable, and others feel it, even if they can't articulate it. Focusing inward allows you to heal wounds that chasing often masks. For many, the need to chase stems from unresolved insecurities, abandonment issues, or the belief that love must be earned through effort or sacrifice. When you stop chasing and sit with those feelings instead, when you allow them to surface and be healed, you begin transforming from the inside out. This self-awareness makes you more emotionally balanced, less reactive, and far more discerning about where you invest your energy. And this is where the magic begins. The person you once chased may suddenly realize your absence. The silence becomes louder than words. Your detachment becomes more impactful than any plea for attention. Why? Because inner focus breaks the dependency cycle. It signals to the world that you are complete, with or without their presence. Ironically, it's this withdrawal of energy that often ignites curiosity or even desire. People begin to wonder, why aren't they chasing me anymore? What changed? In many cases, they start looking for you not just because of ego, but because they begin to see your value more clearly when you stop handing it to them freely. However, inner focus isn't about manipulation. The goal is not to make someone chase you. It's to become so grounded in your own self-worth that their pursuit, or lack thereof, no longer defines your value. When your happiness no longer depends on their recognition, you gain emotional freedom. That detachment is a form of power, quiet, calm, and undeniable. Inner focus also shifts your perspective. You begin to realize that love and connection should feel mutual, respectful, and easy, not something you have to constantly chase. You start choosing peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and dignity over desperation. As a result, you elevate your standards and attract relationships that align with your growth. Ultimately, when you stop chasing, they start looking for you not because of some game you played, but because your inner focus has made you whole. And wholeness is deeply attractive. It radiates confidence, mystery, and strength. People feel it, they respect it, and many once blind to your worth start to recognize what they lost or overlooked. So if you find yourself chasing, pause and turn inward. The answers, the strength, and the transformation you seek don't come from chasing anyone else. They come from rediscovering yourself. Your focus is your power, and when you protect it, you stop chasing and they start looking.